What makes a serial killer truly terrifying? Is it the motive, the precision, or is it the weapon? Dexter Morgan, blood spatter analyst by day, serial killer by night. But what made his kills stand out? The weapons. Some were brutal, some poetic, and some just plain bizarre. Wait until you see how he killed someone with a fire extinguisher. But if there's one weapon that defined Dexter more than any other, it's the knife. If Dexter had a signature move, it was stabbing someone right in the heart with a razor-sharp knife. And honestly, could we expect anything less? The guy had an entire roll-up bag of knives like he was carrying around the ultimate chef's kit, except instead of filleting fish, he was taking out Miami's worst criminals. From day one, the knife was his weapon of choice. It was precise, efficient, and, let's be real, deeply personal. Unlike a gun, which is cold and distant, a knife forces you to be right there with your victim. Dexter wasn't just about killing. He was about control, about ensuring every aspect of the murder went exactly according to plan. And let's not forget, he wasn't using some random kitchen knife from Bed Bath & Beyond. No, this man had high-quality blades, scalpel sharp, durable, and hand-picked for the job. Whether it was the ice truck killer, Trinity killer, or some nameless scumbag, Dexter always had his trusty knife ready to go. And let's talk about that moment. You know the one. The victim wakes up on the kill table, they see the plastic wrap, the eerie glow of Dexter's workspace, and then that knife glides across their skin like a scalpel on an operating table. Cold, precise, ruthless. Honestly, if Dexter were a painter, his knife was his brush. And the canvas? Well, you get the picture, but the next one is quite intriguing. The hypodermic syringe. Before Dexter even got to the stabbing part, he had to make sure his victims weren't thrashing around and ruining his perfect setup. This little tool was essential to his process. With the speed of a snake strike, Dexter would jab his victims right in the neck with a syringe full of M99, an animal tranquilizer that knocked them out in seconds. And let's be real, this thing was iconic. You could almost feel the tension every time Dexter crept up behind someone, syringe in hand, ready to stick him like a voodoo doll. And the best part? It was clean. No mess, no noise, no struggle. 1 second, the target is walking down a dark alley, and the next, lights out. Also, can we talk about how slick he was with it? Like, imagine how much practice it takes to stab someone perfectly in the neck every single time without missing a beat. The man had Olympic-level precision, no hesitation, no fumbling. Just bam. Sweet dreams, buddy. And you gotta appreciate the irony. This dude worked in forensics, literally solving crimes, and his weapon of choice was something used by actual medical professionals. It's like his day job and night hobby are perfectly intertwined. If the knife was Dexter's main weapon, the syringe was his opener, his way of setting the stage. No victim saw it coming, and by the time they woke up, it was already too late. Avoid the fate of being Dexter's next victim. Like and subscribe. Plastic wrap. Now, I know what you're thinking. Plastic wrap isn't a weapon, but hear me out. Without plastic wrap, Dexter's entire operation would have been a nightmare. Think about it. Every time he set up a kill, he had to ensure that not a single drop of blood was left behind. And this wasn't just a haphazard approach. This man wrapped his crime scenes tighter than a Christmas present. Every victim was carefully secured to the table with industrial-strength plastic wrap. No struggling, no escape. And let's not forget how this setup played into the psychological aspect of Dexter's kills. Imagine waking up, unable to move, staring at a man who's explaining exactly why he's about to kill you. That's next-level terror. But the plastic wrap wasn't just about restraint. It was about control. Dexter's identity revolved around keeping things clean, precise, and methodical. And plastic wrap was a huge part of that. No mess, no evidence, no mistakes. And honestly, the sheer amount of plastic this man must have gone through is insane. Like, do you think Home Depot ever got suspicious? Hey, why is this one guy buying industrial-grade plastic wrap every week? Also, a fun fact, the way he pulls the plastic wrap tight before a kill? That's a little nod to his garrote strangling days. Just a tiny, chilling detail that makes Dexter, well, Dexter. The garrote. Now, Dexter wasn't always about the stabby. Sometimes he got creative. and one of the most poetic ways he ever took someone out? The garrote, the classic strangulation wire. Now, why is this poetic? Because it's one of the oldest, most intimate ways to kill. It requires strength, precision, and patience. And for Dexter, it wasn't just about taking someone's life. It was about choking out their control over others. One of the best examples? Miguel Prado. Miguel was one of Dexter's most fascinating frenemies. At first, they were boys, right? Miguel wanted to learn Dexter's ways, and Dexter, who, let's be honest, was a little lonely, thought maybe, just maybe, he could have a partner in crime. But Miguel took things too far. He didn't care about the code. He just wanted power. And Dexter? He couldn't let that slide. The poetic part? Miguel trusted Dexter. He thought they were allies. And yet, when Miguel felt the garrote tighten around his throat, he knew he messed up. That slow, panicked realization. Chilling. The claw hammer. Ah, Trinity Killer. The guy who single-handedly changed Dexter's life forever. We all know what he did. Season 4, Episode 12, The Getaway. One of the most gut-wrenching season finales in TV history. This wasn't just another case for Dexter. This was personal. Now, Dexter could have just used his knife and been done with it, but no. This kill was about balance. Trinity, aka Arthur Mitchell, had a pattern. He murdered his male victims by bludgeoning them with a claw hammer. It was brutal, savage, and deeply personal. He didn't just kill, he crushed. And in a twisted sense of poetic justice, that's exactly how Dexter decided to take him out. This wasn't a standard Dexter kill. Usually he was calm, controlled, and methodical. But this time, there was something different in his eyes. A quiet rage, a slow-burning fury that you could feel even through the screen. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about making him suffer the way Rita suffered. Let's talk about that moment. Trinity, lying there, helpless. He knows it's over. He knows Dexter has won. And the real kicker? He's not even scared. He accepts his fate, almost as if he knew this was coming. That eerie smirk before the hammer comes down? Haunting. And when Dexter swings, boom, the weight of 4 seasons of trauma, frustration, and vengeance, all packed into that one devastating blow. And honestly, it wasn't enough. I think we all wanted Dexter to keep going, to keep smashing until there was nothing left of Trinity. But Dexter, ever the perfectionist, ended it swiftly. One clean, poetic kill. The most ironic part? Trinity thought he was in control the whole time. He thought he had gotten the last laugh by taking away Rita. But in the end, it was Dexter who had the final say. And yet, even in victory, there was no relief. Because Trinity had already done the damage. He had already broken Dexter in a way no one else ever had. This wasn't just a kill, it was a turning point in Dexter's life. And that's what makes it one of the most powerful poetic executions in the entire series. The chainsaw. Okay, let's talk about trauma. Because of this next one? This wasn't about justice, this was about closure. Dexter, for all his meticulous planning, was shaped by one singular event. Watching his mother get dismembered with a chainsaw as a child. That moment defined everything. It turned him into who he was. It was the reason for his dark passenger, the root of his compulsions, the origin of his need to kill. When Dexter finally tracks down Santos Jimenez, the man responsible for his mother's brutal murder, this isn't just another kill. This is him facing his demons head-on. Now, let's talk about the symbolism here. Dexter rarely chooses messy, chaotic weapons. He likes precision, knives, syringes, tools that leave no room for error. But this was about something deeper. The chainsaw represented the horror that shaped his life. And using it to kill Jimenez? That was his way of reclaiming that moment, of taking control of the trauma that haunted him for decades. And let's be real, this wasn't just about killing Jimenez. This was Dexter killing his past. The scene itself is brutal, even though most of it happens off-screen. You don't see the dismemberment, but you hear it. The chilling buzz of the chainsaw, the muffled screams, the raw intensity in Dexter's eyes, it's all there. And for once, this wasn't about the code. This wasn't about Harry's rules. This was just Dexter, the damaged child, getting revenge. The interesting part? This was one of the few kills where Dexter seemed truly emotional. Usually when he kills, he's calm. He's in control. But this time, you could see something different in his face, something almost primal. It's as if for a brief moment, he wasn't Miami's meticulous serial killer. He was just a broken kid who finally got the chance to fight back. Now, let's talk about the psychological impact. Did this kill help Dexter move on? Not really, because trauma doesn't just disappear overnight. But what it did do, it gave us one of the most satisfying, full-circle moments in the entire series. The man who created Dexter's darkness, killed by the very same weapon that started it all. That, my friends, is poetic justice at its finest. The boat anchor. Most of Dexter's kills are methodical. They follow a pattern. He finds a victim, stalks them, confirms they deserve to die, sets up a kill room, and bam, justice is served. But this one? This one was pure rage. Rita is dead. Dexter is completely numb. The love of his life was just murdered by Trinity, and he has no idea how to process it. He isn't grieving like a normal person. He isn't crying. He isn't breaking down. Then along comes Rankin, a loudmouth redneck at a boatyard, running his mouth about Dexter's dead wife. And just like that, Dexter snaps. He grabs a boat anchor, not a knife, not a syringe, but a freaking boat anchor, and beats the guy to death right there in broad daylight. No planning, no code, no plastic wrap, just brutal, messy rage. And the scariest part? He doesn't even seem to care. This was one of the only times we saw Dexter kill someone purely out of emotion, without any ritual or justification. It wasn't about justice, it was about grief. And that makes it one of the most intense and terrifying kills in the entire series. The fire extinguisher. By the time Dexter entered Season 7, our favorite serial killer had been off his game for a while. He was dealing with the fallout of Deborah discovering his secret, trying to suppress his urges, and attempting to convince himself that he could live a normal life. But as much as Dexter tried to control his dark passenger, the truth was, it had been too long since his last kill. He was slipping, unsure of himself, almost rusty. That all changed when he crossed paths with Viktor Baskov, a Ukrainian hitman who had just murdered Miami Metro detective Mike Anderson in cold blood. Dexter wasn't planning to kill Viktor. This was one of those rare situations where he actually had no intention of getting involved. But when he was called to investigate Mike Anderson's murder, he pieced together that Viktor was the killer, and instead of letting the law handle it, he followed him to the airport. Dexter had spent the entire episode wrestling with his urges, questioning whether or not he could still be himself after Deborah's discovery. But when he saw Viktor trying to flee the country, everything snapped back into place. Trapped together in a small airport baggage storage room, Dexter had no choice but to improvise. There was no time to prepare a kill room, no time for his usual ritual. He had to act. With Viktor realizing who Dexter was and getting aggressive, Dexter grabbed the nearest object he could find. And that's when he saw it. A fire extinguisher. Without hesitation, he swung it with full force, smashing it into Viktor's head. This was not Dexter's usual style. His kills were always clean, quiet, and methodical. This was pure, unfiltered brutality. There was no plastic wrap, no careful positioning of the body, and no signature stab to the chest. Just raw force and a sudden, crushing blow to the skull. As Viktor's body collapsed, the room fell silent. For a brief second, Dexter stood still, staring down at what he had done. This was messy. It was reckless. It was unlike him. And yet, for the first time in a long time, it felt right. He had spent so much time trying to suppress his true nature, to live in denial of who he was, but at that moment there was no doubt. He needed this. It wasn't just about Viktor. It was about Dexter remembering who he was. The dark passenger had been lurking beneath the surface, waiting, starving, desperate to be set free again. And with one crushing blow, Dexter had let it out. Viktor's death, however, was not the end of the story. It was just the beginning of what would become one of the most chaotic seasons of Dexter's life. Unlike his usual victims, Viktor wasn't just some random lowlife. He was connected to the Koshka Brotherhood, a powerful Ukrainian crime syndicate. Killing him meant one thing: Dexter had just made himself a target. As he cleaned up the scene, dragged Victor's body into his car, and drove toward the docks, there was something different about Dexter. The hesitation from earlier in the episode was gone. His inner turmoil had quieted, replaced with a familiar calmness. He was in control again. He was himself again. And as he dumped Victor's body into the ocean, there was no regret, no second thoughts, no fear. Dexter was back. Dexter Morgan's arsenal of murder weapons wasn't just about efficiency, it was about precision, improvisation, and sometimes pure poetic justice. From his signature knife to the unexpected brutality of a fire extinguisher, every kill told a story. So, if you want to know more about his story, you can check out our channel. Thank you, and dive into the next thrilling Dexter video for more intense insight.